Welcome to the Solid Verbal. The Solid Verbal.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
I've heard so many players say, well, I want to be happy. You want to be happy for a day? Eat a steak.
It's that woo-woo!
And now, Dan and Ty.
Welcome back to the Solid Verbal, boys and girls. My name is Ty Hildenbrand. Joining me, as always, over there in beautiful New York City, my man, Dan Rubenstein. Sir, how are you?
You know, Ty, you sound especially clear.
Yeah?
You sound especially punchy, bouncy. You know what I think that is? I think it's the Swinney Effect.
Yeah.
I think it's the Swinney Effect. That is, first of all, that is a reference that almost nobody is going to understand.
We're gonna talk about this.
But we are going to attribute so much to the Swinney Effect in 2019. I'm good, Ty. I can't complain. I am busy, but I am very excited about tonight's show. Let's make some pretend money for ourselves and for everybody listening.
Let's make some cash. That's what we're going to do here on the podcast this evening. A fun show planned. Hello, welcome to the show. I'm Ty. He's Dan. You can find our website at solidverbal.com if you're a new listener and want to figure out what this is all about. We've also got plenty of social media. You can find us on Twitter, the redesigned Facebook, apparently, as well as Instagram. There is a subreddit that some of our most fervent supporters have started out at reddit.com/r/solidverbal. And of course, if you want to make sure that you're up to speed with every last nugget of solid verbal goodness, go on out to our website and sign up for our newsletter of intent. We have not sent one of these out in months, but I have a sneaking suspicion that once we get things going with shirts and a few other things we're working on in the laboratory, we'll be sending that out a few times here over the course of the next couple weeks and months.
We're getting closer on shirt number 2, by the way. So we're hoping for late spring, early summer, rolling everything out with that, hopefully with our friends at Cotton Bureau.
Yes.
So tonight's show, first of all, is there any news you want to discuss?
I would love to talk about the Swinney Effect, Dan.
Okay. So I sent you this morning. A PowerPoint leaked from, I guess, Clemson.
This is
I'm sure with
story.
intention.
The perfect story for our podcast, by the way.
Okay, so let's back up even more. Dabo Swinney has earned himself a 10-year, $93 million. That's the reported new deal that he has earned for himself.
That's
and
right.
It's hard to argue against the results and to the place to which Clemson has climbed in the college football universe. The defending national champions, they're recruiting like crazy. They're raising money like crazy. The enrollment is way up at Clemson, like what happens at most big schools when football is, in front of millions, that there's an excitement about being part of something around the program, around the school. So things are very, I believe this is the word, they're bullish right now for
Very
Clemson
bullish.
and Clemson football.
Yes.
So Nick Saban is no longer the most well-paid per year head coach, and Jimbo's close, but it's Dabo Swinney, and he's making about $9 million when you consider all of the base salaries and bonuses and incentive structures, about little over $9 million a year for the next decade, and has, I think it's what's a $2 million on top of his normal buyout.
Yes.
If he goes to Alabama, and that goes down by $500,000 a year after a couple of years. So that is the new deal, and people were sort of reacting with, wow, that's no money to pay the players, no money for this and that. We got money for that, huh? And what happened was the athletic department went to the Clemson board. I saw this on Football Scoop. I don't know where exactly it broke, so I apologize.
I think it broke on The Athletic.
It was on The Athletic. Okay, Good to know. Good people over there at The Athletic. And PowerPoint slides leaked of the presentation that the athletic department gave the Clemson, board of trustees, directors, what have you.
This is so good. This is so perfect for our show.
The underlying artwork is the Swinney Effect. That it's just when revenue for football is up, revenue for donations is up, enrollment is up, and just ratings and everything it's a nonstop upward trajectory for Clemson, and there is one man and one man only who it can be traced back to. This is not necessarily false, but wow, the Swinney Effect is what it says along the bottom of these slides.
I am excited to use this in perpetuity.
Yeah.
on this podcast. When anything goes right, we're going to attribute it to the Swinney Effect. The other thing that I should add as part of this, and I promise we're going to move on to the actual content of our show this evening.
Mm-hmm.
You and I had what I would describe as a rather productive and fruitful G-Chat discussion earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as you know, as many of our listeners know, PowerPoint slides look about 80% the same.
Yeah. A few bullet points in there, star wipe here and there.
About 80% the same. If you've seen one, you've kind of seen them all. You can recognize other PowerPoint slides.
Do you make PowerPoint presentations for your day job?
Yeah, I do.
How often?
Fairly often, I'd say.
Oh man, that's a blind spot for me.
A couple times a month.
I don't think I've ever, for a serious situation, whenever I've had to pitch or present things, it's either, I guess, in video form or I'm just speaking. And that's, no visual aids.
For the live show, we use a different tool, but
I guess technically, yes, we're in that same boat.
PowerPoint is something I'm very familiar with, as are, I'm sure, a lot of our listeners. A lot of them look the same. And we had a rather lengthy discussion on G-Chat about which cheesy Microsoft animation the producers of said slide deck used to unveil the Swinney Effect on the slide deck.
The Swinney Effect.
And I took a screen cap of my work computer. Hope I'm not breaking any rules by saying that.
That's okay.
And you and I had a lengthy discussion about which of these transition effects we believe they applied for the unveiling of this effect, the Swinney Effect.
Well, I think it's Easter time, and so I had the appear effect as my go-to guess for this situation for Dabo, just because it all connects really, really nicely timing-wise. I could see them using... You can put in sounds, right? As something, a swoosh.
It gets a little more complicated. A little more complicated. But yes, you can, technically.
All right. So that's what I'm going with is they're probably doing it minimally because they want to say this is a big professional guy. This is a very serious presentation. We're not doing star wipes. But I think on certain slides, they couldn't help themselves. Like a little wink, nudge, nudge.
Star wipe is a good transition effect. I went with grow and turn because there's some significance there.
That's true.
Grow and turn.
Yeah, we're the program is growing, the school is growing, we're turning over a new leaf and really making Dabo feel appreciated. Okay.
I am most interested in knowing if they applied any transitions to the slides. Not so much the actual content or the Swinney Effect, but the transitions to me are key here.
With how much money they've poured into that program, and granted, I'm definitely one not to speak as an Oregon fan, but with how much money they've poured into the program with the new facility, if they really, really wanted to go for it and sort of loosen things up, you probably go with Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly from Step Brothers, right? You probably have them do the presentation, or something like maybe Entertainment 720 from Parks and Rec. Yeah. So you either have, what was the Step Brothers production company?
Oh, God, I forget. I know
they did Boats and Hose.
Yeah.
Now I'm looking this up. This is going to bother me.
Let us know what you think.
Yeah.
I'm going to post this screen cap on our
Worldwide, Prestige Worldwide.
Prestige Worldwide, that's it.
They should have gone with Prestige Worldwide if they really wanted to melt the hearts and minds of the board of directors and have the two of them really go for it. Boats and Hose and more money for Dabos.
I am going to post this screen cap of all possible transition effects very vaguely on our Twitter account and see what happens.
Right. Okay. I like it.
Sneak peek at tonight's show. Here you go.
Brennan and Dale Doback? I know it's Dale Doback. I think it's Brennan. Not Brendan, but Brennan. Oh, God, Step Brothers is good. Okay.
So tonight's actual show, Daniel, let's make some bets. Now, before we get there, we've got a bit of a rivalry going on here. Now, I came home from the mysterious day job where I was doing productive things like screen capping and sending to you transition effects in the Microsoft PowerPoint program. I only had a few seconds to come up with the sound. And so I pulled this one out. It's a betting show. Hopefully, we're going to be making some money. I pulled this one out. Plain and simple, cash register, right?
Just sounds like you're walking into a Pier 1 Imports.
I would say in about 1/8 the time that I thought that one up and downloaded it,
Yeah.
you sent this one over. Now, I'm a competitive soul, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're picking between the two, while mine is probably easier on the ears if we're going to play it about 10 times, yours is definitely more annoying and interesting. So I think you win.
That's why that sound is why I don't go to Vegas. I'd love to go to Vegas and eat my head off, but that sound keeps me away.
All right. Tonight's show, Dan and I have both very fortuitously inherited, stumbled upon, found in a basket outside our front door, $1 million.
Think about what you would actually spend with your newly acquired $1 million. We'll get to that at the end of what we're doing.
I would buy $1 million car.
Good.
1 million solid verbal bucks. And we have all of the futures bets at our disposal for the upcoming 2019 college football season. There are some game lines, specific game lines that have been released, at least according to betonline.ag. We've also got some Heisman odds. We've got some over-under totals for teams out there. We're not going to be going through all of them, but we're going to be going through the ones that we feel most confident about. So I've got a list here. You've got a list there. Neither you nor I have examined the other's list.
Correct.
But we solicited a couple answers out there on Twitter. Some of them actually coincide with mine. I'm sure yours as well. So, Daniel, tell me
By the way,
yeah,
I was definitely inspired last night when watching James Holzhauer on Jeopardy, because he's at 1.4 million, so he's over $1 million. He's a professional sports gambler. He wagers for a living. And this was when we were texting about what we were going to do today. So it all clicked for me. So we're going to compare notes by the end of the year and see who's done more with their $1 million. I'm going to start with the lowest. So all I said was, and I posted this on Twitter as well, is each bet has to be at least $100,000.
Okay.
Now you have a bunch there, and I don't think you've determined your denominations.
I'm going to be making this up on the fly, but I like the cut of your jib here.
We're whales here, Ty. We are really going for it. We are big spenders. Each bet has to be over 100K, and we have to make at least 5 of them.
Okay.
You can decide how you're going to spend your money and how you're going to separate it all out as we do it, I guess. I'll start with my lowest bet, which is the minimum.
Okay.
100K. I actually have 200K bets.
Okay.
The first, Sam Ehlinger, plus 1,600 to win the Heisman.
Oh, you dog. I have it on mine, too.
41 total touchdowns last year. Promising young receivers. Colin Johnson returns. Devin Duvernay, has potential as a burner, and they're getting better at running back. And defensively, they take a step back, it looks like, in the secondary. I love their safeties, but at corner, a little inexperienced. So they could get torched a little bit in the Big 12, could get some shootouts on our hands, and they keep giving the ball to Sam Ehlinger in the red zone. So he's vulturing. So the numbers are going to be there. He could get to 50 this year.
I like this a lot.
And he doesn't turn the ball over either.
I like this a lot. See, here's my problem. By the way, there's not much value right now in the Heisman market. And I'm not exactly a shark, whatever a pro gambler is considered. I'm not
Sharp,
that.
Shark, yeah.
Sharp, yeah. Thank you. Sharp, not shark. There is not a lot of value in the Heisman market right now.
No.
It's tough to bet the Heisman because there's always so many different names. Right now, the favorite is Trevor Lawrence. He's at about 3.5 to 1. And there are some other names that, of course, you'll recognize that are in pretty close proximity. Tua is up there as well. Jake Fromm, I saw, is on the list. You can guess who is on that list. The only one that I saw, as you did as well, is that Sam Ehlinger is at 16 to 1 and probably, I think, the most valued of all those in terms of odds. So,
what conference have the last 2 Heisman winners come from?
They've come, I was going to say Oklahoma, but the answer is the Big 12.
They've come from the Big 12, and I guess it looks like what I'm counting right now on the show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the last 9 have played what position?
Quarterback.
That's true. This is absolutely true. So Sam Ehlinger, I think, is decent value. I think he's right at 16 to 1 is what Justin Herbert is getting as well. And I'd rather take Ehlinger here.
I agree. I agree. Okay, so here's the way this is going to work.
And has that big September matchup to really get him square in the crosshairs of the Heisman committee hosting LSU.
So we're going to write these down. I'm going to keep track of this on my notepad.
Yep.
And hopefully I can throw it over the fence to our good friends on the subreddit, and they'd be willing to track these over the course of the calendar year for us.
Are you going big with this bet, by the way?
I think I'm going to go real big with this bet. So
whoa,
I want you to keep something in mind. When I'm looking at team win totals, when I'm looking at over-unders, I'm not so much looking at what happens if it all goes right for a team.
Right.
I'm looking at a schedule, and I'm trying to come up in my head with what could all possibly go wrong. And even in the worst possible instance, will this bet lose? I have Oklahoma State over 6 wins.
It does seem low.
It seems extraordinarily low, which does frighten me a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But in order for that bet not to win, or at least push, Mike Gundy is going 5-7, and he's not going to a bowl game for the first time in the last 14 years. He's made 13 consecutive bowl games. The only year he was head coach at Oklahoma State that he didn't make a bowl was his very first season. So I feel pretty confident that he's going to find a way to cobble it together. There is clearly some concern. The over-under is very low. But 6 wins, Dan. 6 wins feels more than attainable to me for Mike Gundy. He's got the track record. I am going to go large with $200K on this one.
Whoa. Okay. Oregon State, McNeese, and Tulsa in the non-con. So we're saying 3-0 pretty confidently going into the Texas game in Austin. So they have to go 4-5 in Big 12 play for this to hit.
That's right.
That seems very attainable, especially when you have Peter Hoffman's, Sean Gleason's Oklahoma State offense.
That's right.
That's a very obscure reference, but shout out Peter Hoffman, who, God, he's approaching McKissick. He is approaching McKissick in terms of valued verbaler. Absolutely.
We need a sound, though. We can't use the McKissick sound.
No. We'll come up with something new, which would have worked well for the Cowboys, but oh well.
I have an idea. We'll talk after the show.
All right. I am, with my first win total, I'm going Nebraska so you're going over Oklahoma State. I'm going to go with the former Big 12 opponent of Oklahoma State, Nebraska. I'm going under 8 wins, staying on brand. So that's plus 110. So not huge plus number, but you're getting plus money.
Right.
So bet 100, get 110 back. I'm going with 125K on this.
Whoa.
So not huge money, but since you went over there, to the win totals. Nebraska has still a tricky schedule coming off of the season, which certainly was moving in the right direction, but defensively they had some very rough moments. They've got Colorado, they have Northern Illinois, new head coach, but I think Colorado is going to be okay, especially early on. They have, I think, arguably either the best, if you don't think Jerry Jeudy's as good as Laviska Shenault, or second best receiver in the country. They have Ohio State, and that's the only one of the really big 4 or 5, whatever. They have Wisconsin later on in the season, but going through their schedule, they have Ohio State, they go to Minnesota, and improving Minnesota, they host Wisconsin, and then they finish with, obviously, as they do every year, Iowa. 8's a lot. When I went through the schedule, and I didn't do best case, I didn't do worst case, I was seeing 6 or 7, which is still really nice. Improvement. Great. But I'm going to take the under of 8 for Nebraska.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm betting 125K on that at plus money. I think it's good value.
Decent value. Okay. Moving on. Let's do another over-under, Dan. I'm going to play the sound here because I'm feeling saucy. Again, continuing with my thought from earlier.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Clemson's schedule this year, and I am not seeing any losses on this schedule. Now, what's interesting to me...
Like Washington from a few years ago.
Right. That's part of the issue.
Yeah.
Their over-under is 11, which means that in order for this bet to truly...
Is it really?
It's 11.
Wow.
In order for Clemson to truly lose this bet, in order for you to actually lose your money and not just tie, they need to go 10-2.
Yeah.
So worst case scenario, if they lose one game, you don't win any new money, but you don't lose the old.
11 wins. How about that? Okay.
11 wins is the over-under, and here is what their schedule looks like. They got Georgia Tech at home. They've got A&M at home, second week of the year. Should be an interesting game. Maybe more of a measuring stick for A&M than Clemson, but
I believe Georgia Tech, that game kicks off the ACC network
there you
existence
go.
in the way that
ACC
Michigan
network.
App State did. Yeah.
We're at Syracuse a week after A&M, which could be interesting.
Carrier Dome.
Charlotte, then they're at North Carolina. Then there's a bye before Florida State, at home, mind you. At Louisville, home against Boston College, home against Wofford, at NC State, home against Wake, then a bye before they get to their road tilt against South Carolina. I don't see 2 losses on that schedule for Clemson, not with all they've got coming back, not with Trevor Lawrence on the roster. So I feel pretty good about that. I am going to say 150 large on Clemson over 11 wins.
So what you're basically banking on here, if you feel that confident, is they're going to pull Trevor Lawrence as soon as they go up 20-17 in some of these games. Because if Trevor Lawrence goes down...
20-17? No, they're not.
No, I'm saying up 17 or 20
17.
Points.
Continue.
Yes.
Continue.
The margin is 17 or 20 points, because is it still Chase Bryce behind Trevor Lawrence? We'll further investigate. But yes, the depth there isn't where, say, last year with Tua and having Jalen Hurts behind him. So that's a concern. The 2 losses are really hard to find. You really have to squint.
You got to
find
squint
2
to
losses.
find. You got to maybe look for a weird.
I mean, it's the
road
Carrier Dome and
game.
A&M. It's September is the tough month.
September's tough. The Carrier Dome's weird. Maybe Louisville
a lot,
week
though.
after Florida State.
No, I don't see that.
I don't
mean,
see it
Louisville's
either.
probably better than the record indicates. It's A&M, Syracuse, and to me, South Carolina, who move the ball really well at times. Just getting blown out last season.
But they're not losing 2 of those.
I don't see it. So it feels pushy to me, so it feels stay away-ish to me, but I get it.
Now, I should also add that the line here, the money line, is you've got it at minus 140, which means that if I'm betting 150K on this, I'm not getting
much.
I'm not getting as much in return. But you know what? If the minimum is 100 and I can still get a lot in return, I'm going to take that.
That's right. No, that's a good amount of college.
Let me go one more time here. Let me take one more spin on the over-under wheel, if I could. I just invented an over-under wheel, Dan. I hope that's okay.
I like it.
Let's talk about Florida State, also in the ACC. Florida State's over-under
ready.
is 7.5. Now look, listen. I know it didn't go well for Florida State a year ago, but over 7.5 means that they need to get to 8 wins. They can lose 4 games on their schedule, and here's what their schedule looks like as we go into 2019. First and foremost, a neutral site game, but more of a home game, really, when Boise State comes into town week 1 in Jacksonville. Sort of
quarterback.
A home game.
It is a home game. It is.
We've got the ULM Warhawks at Virginia.
Fun row.
At Virginia. Louisville, NC State, at Clemson, at Wake, Cuse, Miami, Boston College, Alabama State, and at Florida. A decidedly more difficult schedule than what we just saw from Clemson. I'm not trying to knock Clemson, but I think that's a much more difficult schedule. Do you think Florida State loses more than 4 of those games? It seems like it's a good number, but more than 4 seems like a stretch, especially after things went as south as they did a year ago for Willie Taggart. Right. I think he gets them back on the straight and narrow, and that 8-4 should be more than attainable.
Yeah, when you have Kendall Briles, how can you not?
Of course.
Nice, straight and narrow. So Boise, Clemson, Miami, Florida, Syracuse are if they're going 7-5, and what, that would go under?
That would go under.
Yes. Those seem like the most obvious with what Syracuse did to them last year. Granted, it was in the Carrier Dome. Miami, Florida, and Clemson have comparable, if not superior, talent. And Boise State has, even though they definitely struggled last year against Oklahoma State, they have acquitted themselves relatively well against teams that are clearly more talented than them, which Florida State is, and especially getting them, I think that's still in August. So you can pencil in 6-6 pretty, not confidently, but it makes sense.
Give me 8-4.
Wow. Okay.
Right now it's at 7.5. I'm going to take the over at -110.
So which of those? So you think Boise's a win? Then I assume.
Well, I don't know which one's a win. Okay, I'm going to take.
You have them beating Boise or Syracuse. You have to.
Essentially, yes. Yeah. I think they can beat Boise in week 1.
Okay.
Boise's got some of their own turnover that they need to deal with. But look, where Florida State's coming from is obviously very different from where Clemson's coming from. There's a game on the road, week 3 at Virginia. Who knows what happens in that game? All right, Virginia had some stuff to
There's
be
a history there. Losing to Virginia and Charlottesville.
All right, so there are more games on this schedule that frighten me, clearly, than on the Clemson side. But I still feel like Florida State's got so much talent. Willie Taggart's still a good coach. Last year didn't go well. He spent a considerable amount of energy in the offseason trying to retool things. Added a little bit of depth at quarterback with Hornibrook. Please don't make me go into that discussion again, Alex Hornibrook. But
yeah, Blackman or Hornibrook, yep. Or they get a Louisville waiver, maybe from there, the transfer from Louisville. Who knows?
Look, last year I said Florida State was going to go 6-6, and I hedged because I didn't feel good about it, but it ended up being mostly right. This year, I look at the team, I like the talent. The schedule doesn't set up like the easiest schedule in the world, but I do believe in Willie Taggart and the talent they've got in Tallahassee, so I'm going over. I'm going over. I'm going to say
I believe less.
100K. That takes me up to 450K in total bets here.
Yeah, my Sam Ellinger bet was 100. My Nebraska under was 125. I have USC over 7.5 wins.
Really?
At plus money.
Explain.
Plus 130. So bet 100, get 130 back. I only have 100K there, but in this situation, I'm betting on talent, even though I'm never a believer in the Hail Mary coordinator hire to fix, I am still scarred from the Brady Hoke era, and I think Graham Harrell's a lot more talented with offense than Brady Hoke was with defense. But I am a believer in JT Daniels taking a step forward, even though the team necessarily didn't necessarily want him starting last year. I think the players seemed to want Sears, if I remember correctly, rather than JT Daniels stepping in based on camp. But USC, it's 100% a tricky September. Fresno State, Stanford, BYU, Utah. But I still really like the talent, especially up front on defense with how they've recruited. Down recruiting class this year, for sure. But up front, they still have Clancy Pendergast. I still like them at receiver, even though they're thinner there. I think there's still enough talent in a down Pac-12. They have the Utah, then at Washington, and then a bye week, and then at Notre Dame stretch, for sure. Tricky. But if you're betting on upside and you're getting plus money, the back half of their schedule, they have essentially 1.5 pretty good teams in Oregon and ASU. I don't consider Cal to be a full team. So them going 8-4 and losing to, say, Fresno, Stanford, Utah, Notre Dame, I think it's possible for sure.
Okay.
I think they can beat Oregon. They can beat Cal, UCLA, Arizona State, Colorado, Arizona. They can beat Washington. We don't know what's going on with Washington's quarterback situation. So and UW loses a ton on defense. I think just in terms of value, it's pretty decent.
All right. So you're saying 8-4 at a minimum.
Correct.
Here is the operative question then.
Yeah.
8-4, is Clay Helton back in 2020?
No, he's not.
Yeah, I agree.
He makes less money, or he probably is in a great situation with his buyout, but I definitely make pretend money here.
All right. Before we go any further, Dan.
Yes.
Let's talk.
Oh, I'm ready.
Let's talk about your new luggage.
Oh, I am ready to do this. Yes.
Away. Away offers high quality luggage at a much lower price by cutting out the middleman and selling directly to you. You can choose from 9 colors and 4 sizes. They've got a carry-on, the bigger carry-on, both of which, by the way, are compliant with all major airlines, U.S. airlines, I should add. They've got the medium and the large, so very literally named. All suitcases are made with premium German polycarbonate, which is lightweight and unrivaled in strength and impact resistance. They've also got 360-degree spinner wheels, which are guaranteed for a smooth ride.
Ooh.
Try it for 100 days. And if at any point you decide it's not for you, you can return it for a full refund, Dan. No questions asked. Full disclosure, Solid Wife Kate has 2 away bags in the room adjacent to the studio here.
Already did. Before they even became a partner with the Solid Verbal.
True story, before they ever became a sponsor.
Big traveler, Solid Wife Kate.
She's traveled a lot for her mysterious day job. And we've got 2 away bags next door before
She's the head of NBA officiating.
Before she went on a recent international business trip. She demanded that we get another away bag for her travels, and we did because she's enjoyed it so much. So I've seen her enjoy it.
Yep.
And I believe you've got one as well.
I do now have one, and I wish I had it sooner because I just traveled with the Solid Baby and Jody with an I to both California and to Chicago on the grandparent and family and friends tour, meeting the Solid Baby. But because I work on the Solid Verbal and I work on the new show I do, Sports Wars, and am recording constantly, I actually brought out my newish little mixer and my microphone, my big microphone. Sometimes I use a travel microphone. So I had my full podcast setup and I was stuffing it inside of towels and sweatshirts, whatever, just paranoid because we were checking that bag that it was going to be thrown around. And I have, I've had it for a while, a softer cloth suitcase.
Right.
So I was a little bit worried about, this is an expensive mixer. I want to sound good. I want everything to work out, especially since I had to do so much work while I was on the road. And as soon as I got my away suitcase, I was so thankful and grateful that to have a hard shell when traveling with expensive audio or electronic gear, it's such a peace of mind. And I'm so excited. And then, not to mention, it has the built-in USB charger.
That's right.
Into the suitcase. So when you're sitting around delayed and your phone's dwindling down battery-wise, you can just plug that sucker into your suitcase and boom, red to green. No problem.
It charges your cell phone, sleek and ultra-durable material. It's got an internal design that helps keep items neat and organized.
And you lock it up.
You can lock it up. $20 off a suitcase is what you can get right now if you go to awaytravel.com/solid and then use the promo code SOLID during checkout. That's awaytravel, AWAYTRAVEL, all one word, awaytravel.com/solid. Use the promo code SOLID for $20 off a suitcase, Dan.
It's such a smooth ride, too. I don't love traveling, especially now that I have Solid Baby's 3 months old. But this kind of gets me excited to go back in the air.
By the way, you're not implying that you're putting the baby in the suitcase, right?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
That's
Ty.
not
How
listed.
dare you question? All parenting styles are different.
That is not listed on their benefit sheet here that they provided, just FYI.
Baby's not meant to travel in away suitcases.
Also, Dan, very quickly, we talked about this last week. Important safety message. If you're ever stopped at a railway crossing, some of you out there might be right this very minute. You got the crossing signals flashing. You don't see the train. Maybe it's a slow-moving train. Maybe you're thinking you can get across the tracks before the train comes. Think about this alone. In 2018, 270 people were killed at railroad crossings. It was horrible. 270.
Damn, that's awful.
The message to you is very simple. Stop because trains can't. That's from our good friends over at the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Dan. NHTSA.
I got to tell you, I love stopping in plenty of time for a train. I'm being very serious right now.
Yeah.
I love a good stop before the train because when the train starts coming by, chugging by, I don't know if that's the correct verb anymore.
Sure.
But you get to say the same thing to yourself every time. If it's not a passenger, if it's not like an Amtrak or something, you get to say, I wonder what they're hauling. wonder what's going, probably some lumber.
Lumber.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. That's what I just assume. But yeah, I like a good long view of a train.
All right, Dan.
Maybe
I'm going to move on.
Okay.
I don't mean to cut you off.
You ever take any long train rides there, Ty?
No, I haven't.
Really?
No, never have.
I think I've mentioned this before, but 9/11 happened right before I was supposed to fly to Eugene, Oregon to go to college. All flights grounded, had to take a train to college.
That's a long ride.
From Southern California.
That is a long ride.
It could have been a lot more uncomfortable. I had a good time on that train.
All right, let's move on. I'm going to give my fourth bet
Play
for
the sound.
all y'all. Music
some money.
to my ears, Dan. I don't want to jinx your team at all, but let's go Oregon +1 at USC on November the 2nd.
I don't hate that.
This seems like an egregiously low line. I'm not saying it's going to get to 10, but at one point, it's basically a pick 'em. At this point in the season, and especially in light of so many of the questions we have about USC, they could go 8-4. They could hit your over-under and still very well lose this game at home to Oregon. Oregon, by the way, is one of those teams in the Pac-12 North that stands a pretty good chance at making a run, at least at the North.
Sure.
Certainly at the Pac-12, and who knows, they were a trendy pick a couple months ago as a dark horse playoff team. We could debate the merits of that, but they've got a pretty good team coming back, and only a 1-point favorite against the USC team. By that point, it'll be late in the year. Hopefully, Clay Helton will have some of their issues sorted out, but there just isn't a whole lot to give you the warm fuzzies that they're going to be able to beat a team like Oregon. So I feel pretty good about Oregon +1. It's on November the 2nd. I'm going to go $150K on that one.
Okay. Yeah. Oregon's in a good position to travel well, which they didn't last year. And then Justin Herbert's getting a lot of the attention, and somewhat rightfully so. But they're deep at running back. The offensive line is all super. I mean, Penei Sewell is a true sophomore, but I think the rest of them are fifth-year seniors, and they're all back from last season. So they have a good chance with a new defensive coordinator to be unpredictable and really good on defense and run the ball really well, which typically travels, respectably. So I don't hate that pick at all, especially since USC by, what did you say, it was November 2nd?
Yeah.
If USC is just an abject disaster, you're not going to have much of a home field by November 2nd, and Oregon could comfortably win that game. It's not unreasonable.
You could have interim coach Graham Harrell by that point.
Absolutely, you could.
Never know. All right, so I'm in right now. I've got, what is this, $600K in imaginary bets. My hunch is that you've got some big ones still on the board.
I do. My next pick is I'm getting 9 points. Auburn at home against Georgia. 9 points. I know Auburn is retooling the linebacking core, but up front they've got at least a couple first, second, third round linemen, and you're essentially gambling on either what's Joey Gatewood or Bo Nix being pretty good,
right.
But you also have the reassurance that it appears that Gus Malzahn is going to be in charge of the offense once again, like he was in the bowl game against Purdue and like he was when Auburn had an offense. And so there is something pretty exciting about plus money, even though I really love Georgia this year. That's a lot of points for what looks to be another good defense at home in a tough place to play in a rivalry game, pushing double dig. I know the Bulldogs comfortably won last year, but that was in Athens, and that's too many points for me. So I'm gonna comfortably take those 9, and I have that as a $1.25 as well.
Wow. Okay, so you're up to $550
later on in the season. Yes,
in imaginary solid verbal.
And I think I believe that's after the 2 games leading up to it. If you're a body blow believer, Triple B, the real Triple B. That's after Florida and after Mizzou, who gave Georgia some trouble last year. So it's a road. It's a road to get to a rivalry game. That's tough.
Let's go to the, second week of the year?
Okay.
A lot of interesting non-conference games in the early part of September, as always, really. And I looked at this game. I did a double take. I looked at depth charts. I looked at some notes that I've taken here in the infancy of the preseason. I really like Stanford -2.5 at UCF. It's an interesting matchup.
Yeah.
I'm sure that it's going to get a ton of attention because it's a very interesting non-conference game, let's be honest. Stanford is not without some of their own questions. For a long time, one of the biggest strengths for Stanford has been the offensive line and the running game.
Yeah.
Bryce Love's obviously gone. He's dealing with his own injury issues or trying to come back from injury as he now moves on into the NFL. And I believe Stanford loses something like 4 or 5 offensive linemen. So
yeah, Walker Little's back. He's probably going to be a top 15 pick next year.
But otherwise, they're sort of retooling. They also lose our boy J.J. Arcega-Whiteside.
Oh, did you get that one right?
So there are a lot of questions on the Stanford side. And UCF will, of course, be without Mackenzie Milton, who's still recovering from his own terrible injury that we saw towards the end of last season.
He's not playing in this game.
He's not playing in this game.
And it sucks. But yeah,
it does suck. Dariel Mack will be the quarterback unless he is usurped by one Brandon Wimbush or someone else on the roster. But I like Stanford's chances here. I think this is a big game for UCF. Is it at home? Where's this game?
It's in Orlando.
This game is in Orlando. A lot working on the UCF side, but Stanford has been in these games before. I think they can grind it out. I think they can win by a field goal. I think they win by more than a field goal. I really like KJ Costello. I think they win this one going away by 7 to 10 points over UCF. So I'm going to let's go 100K on this one.
Yeah, no Whiteside, no Parkinson. They're down their two big tight ends. Stanford's a tricky team this year because I love KJ Costello-Whiteside, and that is his name to me.
Yeah.
And I still like UCF. I still like Josh Heupel. I still like their ability. Dariel Mack did look, outside of some very certain quarters against LSU, but near the end of the season when he was thrown into duty, he had some huge, huge moments. That's tough for me. Stanford has been a slow starter. I could bet against them, is there a line for the Northwestern game?
I didn't see
I know they're at home, so it's not body clock. Man, I would love to bet Northwestern in that. So the case against Stanford against UCF is also a second straight road game after the USC game. So they could go into LA and beat USC, then you're just prime letdown potential, confident going into Orlando. And they have Oregon the following week, I believe. So it's this weird, I wouldn't call it a full letdown look-ahead sandwich, but maybe a letdown look-ahead slider.
Okay, yeah.
Because you're going to take UCF on the road seriously, of course.
Right.
So I don't love that as much as you do, is what I'm saying. I'll have to get closer before I fully decide, but that doesn't jump out to me in the way it does for you.
What jumps out to me about that game, then we'll move on. Even though I have real serious questions about Stanford in the trenches, particularly on offense, I still feel like whatever they bring in, whoever their new starters are along the offensive line, they're going to be able to push against UCF. There's been the one knock against UCF. They've gotten better. But defensively, that's where the real gap still exists. They've been able to outscore teams. But defensively, if you got a ball control team, potentially like Stanford, who can control the ball, can play their game, I think that works to their advantage in a big way here. So 100K, Stanford minus 2.5. Second week of the year, road tilt against UCF.
Okay. I've got another interesting, I'm not going with the road team here, but I've got another interesting line. What do I have this as? I have this as, there's some big money here. You want me to get into this 200K pick, or do you want me to get into 150K
no, let's do 200.
Win total? 200K, I have Penn State plus 4.5 at home against Michigan. I love home dogs with promising, talented defenses, Tyler. You know this about me.
I do.
So this will be the second straight Michigan road game during this part of the schedule, and it's a week before Notre Dame. Not to say this is a letdown look-ahead sandwich for Michigan, but it is a week before Notre Dame, and even though Penn State is going through a ton of new faces, new ideas, whatever, on offense with new quarterback, new starting running back, trying to get the receiving situation in order around KJ Hamler, I'm just going to go with the system that works for me, and that is taking that good, talented defense. Penn State by the end of the year looked like they had a top 10, top 12 defense nationally.
That's right. Yeah.
It's good enough for me, especially when Michigan loses a ton of pieces on their own defense. So I'm gonna roll with that, especially with the confidence that some of the guys who played in this game the last time it was in Happy Valley will be playing with, because they murdered Michigan 2 years ago. Don't look up what happened last year.
Interesting. Okay, Dan.
Yeah. How do you feel about that as somebody closer? It pays closer attention to Penn State than I do.
Yeah, I'm pretty high on Michigan this year. And
okay.
I did look at that game I had a hard time pulling the trigger. It was intriguing to me because obviously we've got to think for home dogs in this program.
Plus money, love a home dog.
I thought about it. I love their defense. I've got some other games here featuring Michigan that I would say more strongly considering.
You look at week 3? I looked at that one as well.
No.
Oh, okay.
I've got one later in the year that I'm looking at right now.
Oh,
I'm not sure if I'm going to do it or not. I am going to stay within the state of Michigan, though. Let's go back to the well and back to September the 14th, week 2.
Sort of.
Arizona State.
I looked
plus 6. They're getting plus odds at plus 105, which means, again, you put down $10. If you win, you get $10.50 back.
Yep.
Good value. ASU plus 6, second week of the year at Michigan State. Listen. Michigan State could well win this game. There's no doubt.
It's at home. It's in East Lansing. Tough place to win.
It's at home. Weird road tilt for ASU. ASU did not let me down. They were not the laughing stock last year
that
I expected them to be with the new
Damn you.
Herm Edwards model of coaching in college football. We're actually okay, by and large, right?
Oh, totally. I mean, they were inconsistent, and as soon as they looked good, they kind of looked terrible, but that'll happen.
They started out really strongly and then fizzled a little bit, but by and large, not a bad debut for one Herm Edwards.
Yeah.
Michigan State, I don't know what happened last year, Michigan State.
I do. Couldn't move the ball in the correct direction.
I don't know what happened in Michigan State last year.
Yeah.
Early season tilt strikes me as an ugly game. 6 points is a lot in a game like that where neither team has fully figured themselves out. I'm going to go ASU 100K plus the points.
So Arizona State, they finished the season really well, actually. So it was really the early middle point of the season where they weren't. But Herm Edwards and his staff inherited what felt like a 7th-year starting quarterback in Manny Wilkins, the clear best receiver who played the entire year. Laviska Shenault was the best, but in terms of production-wise, N'Keal Harry was that guy. He is no longer there. So offensively, they're going to look different, and they might be starting a true freshman, a talented true freshman, but a true freshman nonetheless at quarterback. To go against that defense as, what's the spread again? 6.5, 7 points?
6 points.
Yeah, it is hard to see Michigan State separating themselves with such a huge, huge margin for them. But gosh, I'm not super crazy about ASU yet. I'll need some time to talk myself into them.
You looked at this one, though. You definitely looked at this one. I know you.
Yeah, well, when you have something as inept as Michigan State's offense was last year, that's a tantalizing situation to bet against. It 100% is.
That's going to be an overlooked game, too.
Yeah.
In week 2. But
You're right.
It's an interesting matchup, at least for dorks like us. I'm up to 800K in bets. So I can go one biggin or 2 smalls here to close out our little show.
So I have 300K left.
I've got
350.
750 is what I've got for you.
I've got 750 left?
750.
Okay, I've made 750. So I have 250 if my math works out.
Hold on. I'm not good at math. That's 225, 325. Okay, so you've got 650 left.
I've got 650. Okay,
650,
my math
you got
checks out.
350 left. Yeah, sorry.
All right. I don't know if you want to play the sound. There she is.
Shoot me straight then. What do you got?
Value-wise, I don't fully believe this, but value-wise, I like it. I've got LSU in the under of 9 wins.
Wow.
LSU in the under of 9 wins.
How
Going
much? How much?
Texas, I've got 150K on this.
Yo.
So going to Texas, Utah State won't be as good as they were last year, probably, but we'll see. Vanderbilt's fine on the road. They should win that. But Florida at Mississippi State, Auburn, Alabama, that's a rough October, early November, and they finished with A&M. So best case scenario for LSU, they're getting 10 wins, probably, right? They're losing something random and they're losing at Alabama. That's just how it works now. So that's best case. You're beating it by, your best case is barely covering this. So I think a medium case is 7-5. a medium case for LSU this year, especially without the heartbeat of their defense from last year. I think they'll still be very good up front. They've recruited incredibly well. Their best cover corner from last season. I don't know. I like Chris Curry and what he might add to the offense. A new running back to run over everybody. But that's tough sledding when you add in that tough non-conference game. So I think there's good value LSU going under 9 and going 7-5, 8-4.
Why don't you give me another one?
All right.
We both have
this is my big one.
$800K left. Yeah, give me your big one.
$200K. So the other pick that I had at $200K was Penn State plus 4.5, by the way, against Michigan. I have Georgia winning the national championship at plus 700, 7-1 odds right now for Georgia, which I like a lot.
So you're really high on Georgia. You weren't kidding.
So I'm going home with $1.4 million if this hits.
I like the cut of your jib here. I like how
I really like, and I've liked him since basically the Notre Dame game from his freshman year. I love Jake Fromm. I love the recruiting around him, even though they lose key pieces, offensive skill wise and on defense, big cogs. The talent level is so high with Georgia that it makes sense to me that maybe Alabama is only an 11-1 team this year. And maybe after 2 years of just doing something either boneheaded like they did last year or just giving up the perfect play like they did the year before, the last play of the game, there's something about this year's Georgia team, the depth. My big thing is quarterback and defense. I like the line in front of Jake Fromm a good deal. They have Notre Dame at home, I believe, but that's not week 1 or 2. They have some time to get into a rhythm. They go to Tennessee, which I think is going to be tricky. They go to Auburn in the rivalry game, which not going to be easy at all. They go to Tech, but this is a good year to get Tech as they rebuild and retool. I like it. They don't have Bama during the regular season in a random crossover. They'll have to go through most likely Alabama in the championship game. And then the elite teams in college football don't jump out to me as obvious right now. Who is it in the Pac-12? Who is it in the Big 12? I mean, probably still Oklahoma with their recent track record, but you're buying in Jalen Hurts in a new system year 1. I think Justin Fields is going to be a clear step back from Dwayne Haskins. I don't think he is a plug and play at all. I think you're underselling Dwayne Haskins' specialness from last year if you think that. The same questions about Michigan still linger. Clemson is the clear elite, but I don't know. I think there's value there at plus 700. Quarterback and defense and talent.
Well, you know what, Dan?
And a team that's been there recently.
They've been there recently. If you're getting ballsy, I feel like
that's not even that ballsy.
Well, it's not ballsy, but it's
I think they're the third most likely team.
It's ballsy because first off, it's not Clemson or Alabama. And secondly, it's $200K on 7-1. That's not a sure thing.
You're correct.
So if you're doing it, I'm going to do it too. I'm going to break my own rule here. You've taken me off my game.
Wow.
I'm going to go 200 large on Trevor Lawrence to win the Heisman at 3.5-1. Now, he is the favorite. I also openly hate the Heisman Trophy.
Heisman trophies. Fine. But you like earning money.
I like earning money, especially fake solid verbal bucks.
Yeah.
But if I hit this one with my 200K that I'm putting on it, that would essentially amount to what? 700K?
The math checks out. 3.5. Yeah.
That would fund some of the other losing bets that I have most assuredly made here. Trevor Lawrence.
That's fun.
I have been high on Trevor Lawrence ever since he was recruited. There was a brief moment towards the beginning part of last year where I wasn't sure. But then second half of the season, he clearly found his own. The playoff against Notre Dame, I'm not going to say was a coming out party, but it was certainly the biggest game we had seen him play in his young career, and he didn't miss a beat. They killed Notre Dame in that game, and then they killed Alabama in the national championship. He left me so impressed. The only thing stopping him from winning more national championships or the Heisman Trophy, especially with his receiving core that he's got coming back in 2019, is probably an injury, and no one's rooting for that.
Absolutely correct. Is there, I mean, I'll have to think about it and go back. Is there a better duo right now than T. Higgins and Justin Ross?
No.
I mean, individually, maybe LaVisca Chenault and Jerry Jeudy are there.
No, and then when you factor in Travis Etienne out of the backfield, who is also on that list of Heisman frontrunners, it's just a murderer's row of offensive weapons for Trevor Lawrence. He's going to have a great support system around him. 3.5 to 1, not the best value for the Heisman. Granted, certainly not as good a value as Sam Ehlinger. I think I talked myself off Trevor Lawrence earlier, but now that I see you getting ballsy with it, $200K for me on Trevor Lawrence to win the Heisman Trophy. And that takes
so you
me
also
to
have
$1,000,000.
a new look starting defensive line. I know they rotate in a ton. So a new look starting defensive line and some key defensive pieces from last year also have moved on. They're not dead. They just graduated or moved on to the NFL.
Right.
We could see more. Oh, it's 34-21 halfway through the fourth, where it would have been 34-7 pull Trevor Lawrence last year.
That's right.
So there could be some stat padding, to get an extra 83 yards laid and touchdown, get an extra 27 yards on a scramble out of bounds, something like that it makes sense. I don't think they're going to be super aggressive with him because of the quarterback depth. Like I said earlier, I think he gets pulled
entirely possible.
But even still, if his efficiency is, if he's 11 yards per attempt and he's, throwing touchdown passes at an impressive clip, as long as the right people know that, he should be fine. The thing is, Kyler Murray had enough shootouts last year that his efficiency and his total numbers covered all bases. And hopefully that's the case with Trevor Lawrence. I hope he has just a crazy good year. And I think the remake of this Clemson, the remade element of this Clemson defense will help him.
To your point, though, from earlier, 8 of the last 9 Heisman trophies have gone to quarterbacks.
Yep.
Outside Trevor Lawrence and Tua Tagovailoa, you're looking at guys like Jalen Hurts. I don't know if he's a Heisman caliber quarterback, but
he's in a Heisman situation. I still feel better about Trevor Lawrence. You're looking at Jake Fromm, who's a very good quarterback in his own right, but probably won't have the stats of either Trevor Lawrence or Tua. Right.
And then outside, maybe Sam Ehlinger, our boy, or Justin Herbert, your boy. It ain't going to Ian Book, dog.
Hey, Khalil Tate's still around. We got some names on here that are interesting, but I don't think any rise to that level. So give me Trevor Lawrence, 3.5 to 1. God, that's so boring. I'm going to give you another name just because. Got it. Kelly Bryant at Mizzou. I don't really fully see it. Staying with that. Ian Book, no.
I really wanted to go Adrian Martinez. The problem with Adrian Martinez, though, is that Nebraska would need to be at least something of a contender to get real consideration for A-Mart, and I don't see that happening.
Yeah, it's tough. Well, I mean, the defense could be kind of a disaster, which would mean a lot of like 50-47 type games, I guess. But that would require the other Big Ten team to score that many points. Jonathan Taylor, I think there's decent value if the quarterbacks are all sort of mushed together and they're all pretty good, but nobody is a spark. Jonathan Taylor, if he goes for over 2,000 yards and does something, I mean, he's not in the return game, but if he is that sort of like, Derrick Henry candidate where there's just not a good quarterback year. And Wisconsin's pretty good and he just goes for 23.50.
If I could get like 10 to 1 odds, 15 to 1 odds on Rondale Moore going to New York, being part of the ceremony.
Yeah.
That is a bet that might interest me. But at 33 to 1 to win it, with all the ammo in front of them, it ain't happening.
I saw Notre Dame at, I think it's 9.5, right? Over under win total.
Yes.
How did you feel about that? Because it was interesting to me because on one hand, I feel like they are built they've had so much regular season success, but they lose the premier dude at every level on their defense. They lose Julian Love and Drew Tranquill and Jerry Tillery, like big deal names for Notre Dame's defense.
Yeah. I'm looking at the schedule now.
Yeah.
The Georgia game terrifies me. The Michigan game on the road terrifies me. And Stanford on the road, last game of the year, should concern every Notre Dame fan because they always lose that game.
When it's in Palo Alto, for sure.
They always lose that freaking game.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not the schedule we saw last year. This is a much more difficult schedule. The road tilts at Michigan and Georgia are going to be bloodbaths. Plus, you've got a game in there against USC.
Mm-hmm.
You got a game in there against Virginia Tech. I don't know what Virginia Tech's going to look like this
Are they
year.
going to start Braxton Burmeister? Is that what I'm understanding at this moment?
I hope not, but I would enjoy saying the name again.
I would love if he's just awesome. That'd be such a cool story. Maybe just Oregon just wasn't for him, and he finds himself in Blacksburg. Who knows?
There's a sneaky Virginia game in here. 9.5 right now.
That Virginia game. If Notre Dame beats Georgia in Athens, they're losing to Virginia.
Huge letdown game. I would be inclined to say 9-3 at this point. I would not want to touch that.
Slight under.
Yeah, I would not want to go over 9.5.
So Georgia, Michigan, Stanford.
Yeah.
They've got BC the week after Navy, which is your other traditional big fear game.
Mm-hmm.
So no week off there. I was looking at Wisconsin. Wisconsin's plus money at home. I believe they're at home against Michigan this year, and that is after Michigan plays Army, but Michigan has a bye week. So that's the only reason I didn't go with that.
All right, so here's what we got. You've got Sam Ehlinger at 16-1 to win the Heisman. Nebraska under 8 wins. USC over 7.5. Auburn plus 9 against Georgia. Penn State at home plus 4.5 against Michigan. LSU under 9 wins. And then to close it out, your Dogs at 7-1 to win the national championship. For me, I've got Oklahoma State over the win total. They're at 6 wins. I've got Clemson over 11 wins. I've got Florida State over 7.5 wins. Oregon plus 1 over USC. Stanford minus 2.5 on the road second week of the year over UCF. I've got Arizona State also second week of the year plus 6 at Michigan State. Ooh. And then to close it out, got ballsy, but not all that ballsy, going with Trevor Lawrence, $200K, 3.5-1 to win the Heisman Trophy.
Not ballsy at all. You went with the favorite.
Not ballsy at all.
Can I tell you something that has been bugging me for weeks?
Please.
And it's solid verbal related before we go.
Did I do it?
You did not do it at all. I neglected to include something on our Hot and Bothered episode.
Yes.
That every time I think about it, because there's a file on my computer. We don't need to play the file. But our Hot and Bothered episode was basically game things. Something that happens.
Sorry, I couldn't.
Thank you. So that's great. Game things that we just get excited about.
Yeah.
We just it could be happening in any game, and if it happens, whether it's a defensive back celebrating after giving up a 23-yard huge pass, but he has a huge hit. That's just it's so fun and ridiculous. How can you not love it? Some of them are genuine. Some of them are sort of petty like that. Mine is genuine, and I forgot to mention when a team has 4th and inches in an enormous moment. And they line up in some sort of jumbo package, like they have 2 defensive linemen in as fullbacks, whatever, and they're just going to do everything possible to get those, that 1.5 foot, whatever it is. And they play action and somebody's wide open behind the defense's cover 0 or something, and it goes for a 71-yard play. The James Brown play. Do you remember this?
Yes.
In the Big 12 championship game.
How could I ever forget?
Way back when. Was so damn great that I went back and watched the clip 1.5 million times. And that to me, when a team just has giant cojones in a spot like that, sometimes a naked bootleg, that's great. Like when Alex Smith did it against, I think it was the Saints in the playoffs in the NFL. That's pretty great. But that little pass, that little flick when it looks like they're just going to throw 10,000 rhinos at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing. That's my favorite thing. And I forgot to mention that during the show, and I wanted to make sure everybody knew just how hot and bothered that made me. I think it was against Nebraska, right?
Yes. I also have one. It's not nearly as hot. It's not nearly as spicy. I've actually been thinking about it for a couple weeks now. Mm-hmm. It's an aesthetically pleasing thing to me.
Oh, that's fine.
Tiger Stadium at LSU.
Yep.
They have the numbers every 5 yards instead of 10.
I do like that.
It's just different. It's unique.
I like that a lot. And you know what else I like about the field? If we're going to talk about the field at Tiger Stadium at Death Valley, I love how the middle of the field is that eye, the eye of the tiger.
Yeah.
But
with the little gradient effect on it, it's nice.
They blend it so well. That's
I don't know. I
need
to know how they do that.
I have to think about my favorite fields in a pretty serious way. Because I fancy myself a college football design nerd.
Do you want to do a favorite fields episode? We could do that.
God. Just a full episode dedicated to aesthetics.
We could get it. Yes, we could get a
audio show.
groundskeeper. We could get people on this show that would actually add to that conversation.
I think LSU has my favorite field, but I'm going to have to give it. I'm not willing to fully commit to that.
All right.
I love the every 5 yard things. That's a great call.
The every 5 yards, the checkerboard at Neyland Stadium is pretty cool too. But
I'm rewatching. So as I described, they call it roll left, this huge play. There are not one, but two fullbacks in for Texas. Every single member of the Nebraska defense is within, let's see, the safety is about 4 yards back. So the safety is barely in at a linebacker depth. And James Brown rolls out, but doesn't even really sell the handoff. Rolls away from his strong side. And when, it's number 82. I apologize for not knowing who caught this pass. When he catches it, he's Ledecky-ing Nebraska. There is not a Nebraska player in the frame.
Nebraska went with the field goal block.
They essentially went with the NCAA. And, good for Nebraska. I think they got him down around the 5 yard line, 10 yard line. So great. But man, was that a thing. Whenever somebody gets Ledecky, it's beautiful.
Yeah. All right. Well,
that's all I had. It was bothering me.
solidverbal@gmail.com is, as always, the email address. Don't forget to follow us if you haven't already on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. And if you're really into the show, going out to reddit.com/solidverbal. It is started by, it is run by our favorite verballers. We pop in from time to time to say hello.
Yeah.
And of course, you want to get more info on the forthcoming shirts and all the other cool stuff we're cooking up, going out to the site at solidverbal.com. Fill out the form. Join our newsletter of intent. We promise not to spam you. Daniel, that's all I got, man.
All right. Same here.
Fun show tonight.
Yep.
I will do my best to try and list out these picks somewhere. Surely no one really cares other than us.
Let's see who makes more money, though.
But let's see who makes more fake solid verbal dollars. For that guy over there, my good friend, Dan Rubenstein. For myself, I'm Ty Hildenbrand over here in Eastern Pennsylvania. We'll catch you all next week. In the meantime, stay solid.
Peace.